The corridors of the refugee vessel Vraxos Mercy echoed with chaos. Groaning steel, flickering lights, and the soft mechanical whir of barely functioning systems were background noise now. But above it all, piercing through like a blade of anguish, was the sound of a crying infant. The child's shrill wail hadn't stopped in 3 days. Alien throats weren't built to produce such sharp sounds or endure them. Many of the refugees, crammed shoulder to shoulder on the overburdened ship, pressed coverings over their auditory nodes. Some hissed threats, others begged for silence. In the middle of it all sat Thessa, a young Zelari female. Her silver-green carapace trembled as she rocked her child in her thin arms. Her antennae drooped, twitching with exhaustion and helplessness. "Please," she whispered in her native tongue, pressing her forehead to her infant's. "Please, little one, stop. Breathe." The child's chitin was still soft, pink-tinted with underdevelopment. Its black eyes blinked rapidly, overwhelmed by the ship's artificial light. Its mandibles clicked and its thorax convulsed as it cried again, long and high-pitched. Medical supplies had been depleted days ago. The AI caregiver bot had attempted a scan, but found nothing physically wrong. Several elders had tried the old ways. Resonance hums, pheromone pouches, vibration wraps. None had helped. The baby continued to cry, not from pain, but from something deeper, something no one could reach. Across the corridor, the others were losing patience. "If she can't shut it up, she should be removed from the pod," someone growled in Galactic Common. "I haven't slept in 4 cycles. She's a mother. That's a child," another protested weakly. "It's a liability," a third snapped. "That cry will attract pirates. Or worse." The argument escalated. Voices clashed. Accusations flew. Threats hovered in the air like sparks before a fire. Thessa curled protectively around her child, shielding it as if she could ward off their anger with her thin limbs. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. The crowd parted as Sergeant Eli Voss stepped into view. His combat boots thudded on the metal deck with the confidence of a predator and the weariness of someone who had seen things. He was human, tall, muscular, scarred. His uniform was patched and scorched in places, and a sidearm rested on his thigh. A strip of gauze peeked from under the collar of his armor, the mark of a soldier who hadn't had time to heal. The noise faded slightly. Even the crying seemed to pause, as if sensing the shift in tension. Someone whispered, "Here we go. The human's going to silence the problem." Eli didn't speak. He crouched in front of Thessa slowly, not making any sudden movements. His blue eyes flicked between mother and child, not with suspicion, but with something else. Something rare. Empathy. He extended his hands, palms open. "May I?" Thessa hesitated. She looked at the others. No one moved. Her arms trembled from fatigue. With great reluctance, she passed her child to him. Eli adjusted his grip carefully. Despite the baby's insectoid appearance, he cradled it like a human infant, tucking it against his chest. He tore a strap from his field cloak and wrapped it around them both, forming a makeshift sling. Then he began to hum. It was an old Earth tune, soft, simple, wordless, just a slow, steady melody with a rhythmic breath behind it. His hand gently tapped a heartbeat pattern against the baby's back. The infant went quiet. Dead silence swept through the corridor like a shockwave. Even the ship's groans seemed to fade. Refugees turned, eyes wide. Whispers stirred. "Impossible. What did he do?" It stopped. Thessa stared in disbelief. Her child's limbs relaxed. Its tiny thorax rose and fell in rhythm with the human's breath. The mandibles unclenched. For the first time in days, it slept. Eli didn't say a word. He stood slowly, still humming, and carried the baby to a quieter corner, far from the hostile glares and nervous chatter. Thessa followed, her eyes wet. "You how?" she asked in halting Common. "I helped raise my sister's baby," Eli said, sitting down carefully. "During the dust storms on Earth. She cried like that, too. Your kind sings to your young." "Sometimes," Eli replied. "Mostly we hold them. Let them feel they're not alone." Thessa sat beside him, awed. And for the first time since boarding the ship, The Vraxos Mercy felt like it might live up to its name. The next cycle aboard the Vraxos Mercy began with an unfamiliar calm. For the first time in days, the air wasn't filled with the constant, piercing wail of an infant. Instead, only the mechanical sigh of life support systems and distant footsteps marked the rhythm of survival aboard the battered refugee vessel. In the aft maintenance bay, Sergeant Eli Voss sat cross-legged on the floor, his body relaxed but alert. Against his chest, swaddled in the same makeshift sling, the Zelari infant dozed peacefully. Thessa hovered nearby, her posture cautious, antennae twitching as she tried to make sense of what she was witnessing. "Your warmth," she said slowly, voice strained from sleeplessness. It soothed him. Eli looked up at her with a soft, tired smile. "It's not just the warmth. It's the heartbeat, the closeness. He knows he's not alone." Thessa tilted her head, trying to translate the unfamiliar logic through her cultural lens. Zelari infants were typically kept in low-light incubation pods, exposed to harmonic vibrations from their hive elders. Physical contact, especially prolonged, was rare and considered primitive. But here, her child, her son, had not only quieted, but thrived under a human's embrace. "You hold your offspring this way always?" she asked. Eli chuckled, adjusting the baby slightly. "More or less. Skin-to-skin contact is big for newborns. Helps regulate breathing, emotions, even development." "Emotions," she echoed. "Our kind suppresses early emotional response. We believe it leads to dependence." "Maybe," Eli said, shrugging. "Or maybe it leads to connection." A long silence followed. Thessa sat beside him, her movements stiff, unsure if she was violating some invisible boundary. The baby stirred slightly, making a soft trill, and Eli rocked gently, his humming resuming, just a simple lullaby, old as war. Thessa watched every motion, cataloging it with the precision of a scholar. "I tried scent patterns, pressure wraps, even an elder's resonant stone," she muttered. "Nothing worked. But you with no tools, no preparation." "I had experience," Eli replied. "During the climate exodus, Earth's refugee hubs were chaos. My little sister was born inside a converted maglev tunnel. I helped raise her while my parents rebuilt our home dome." "You are a warrior," Thessa said, confused. "But you also parent?" Eli grinned. "Humans multitask." More than once, passing refugees stopped at the bay entrance to peer in, whispering, pointing. Some offered awkward nods of thanks. Others looked suspicious. A few eyed the baby with contempt, muttering that Zelari weakness was spreading to other species now. Eli noticed the stares, but ignored them. He could feel the baby's breathing, steady now, soft and safe. That was all that mattered. "You should try," he said suddenly, looking at Thessa. "Hold him like this." Her eyes widened. "But just trust me." She hesitated, then extended her arms. Gently, Eli passed the baby to her, guiding her hands into place. "No, not like that. See? You're holding too rigid. Try here." He adjusted her grip, wrapping her arms in a soft cradle around the baby's thorax and head. "Now lean back. Let him feel your breathing." She complied, awkward and trembling. The baby twitched, loud a soft clicking sound, and relaxed again. Thessa's eyes widened. He senses me. "Yeah, you're his whole world. Let him know you're there." She looked down at her son, blinking rapidly. "All this time, I believed I was failing, that I was not strong enough to be a mother. But it was not strength I lacked. It was knowledge." Eli nodded. "It's not your fault. War tears more than planets apart. It tears up traditions, support, families. Sometimes you just need a new way forward." Thessa looked at him quietly. "Then teach me, human. Teach me this new way." Over the next few days, something strange happened on the Vraxos Mercy. Zelari mothers approached the bay, hesitant but curious. Eli showed them how to hold, hum, and soothe. Some failed, some cried, but a few, just enough, succeeded. Children stopped crying. And for the first time in a long, cold voyage, laughter began to echo through the halls. It began with silence. Not the peaceful kind that came after a child was soothed, but the oppressive kind. The kind that settled like smoke before fire. 3 weeks had passed since Sergeant Eli Voss quieted Thess's child and began teaching his methods. The maintenance bay had transformed into an unofficial gathering space for young mothers. Zelari, Arkari, even a few scattered Celians. Refugees, once divided by culture and trauma, now gathered around a gruff human who seemed more at home holding an infant than holding a weapon. But not everyone welcomed the change. In a dim chamber 2 decks below, Zarek, a former Zelari warrior priest, addressed a group of followers, radicals hardened by war and twisted by loss. He sings to our infants, Zarek spat, his mandibles clicking in disgust, wraps them like prey, feeds them human weakness in place of tradition. A murmur of approval ran through the room. While we fled the Scaran War, they danced around firelight and lullabies. And now, the children of our hive, the future of our kind, bond with a human soldier like a hatchling to its queen. Do you not see? This is contamination, not compassion. But the young survive, one protester said cautiously. They cry less, grow stronger. And next, Zarek snapped. They speak with human tongues, think with human logic, forget who they are. His claws tapped the floor, punctuating each word. I say this now. If we do not stop the human's influence, we will not survive. Our identity will be erased in whispers and lullabies. That night, the power flickered across the Vraxos Mercy. Then it failed completely. Lights died, doors locked, gravity stuttered. Cries erupted from every deck as systems collapsed. Eli, who had been helping his Zelari father soothe the twin hatchling, instantly shifted gears. Lockdown protocol, he muttered, pulling a sidearm from his vest and flipping a visor down over his eyes. Not an accident. Thessa met him in the corridor, baby held close. They've taken the command deck, she said, panting. They cut comms. The security AI is offline. Zarek, Eli growled. He's trying to hijack the ship. Explosions echoed down the corridors. Fires broke out near the energy conduits. Zarek's radicals, armed with stolen fusion blades and hacking tools, moved to isolate decks and purge what they deemed cultural corruption. Their target wasn't just the bridge, it was Thessa's child, and any family following the human way. They want to kill a baby? Eli hissed, disbelief flickering across his face as he crouched beside a blast door. To stop hugs and lullabies? To stop change, Thessa said grimly. The two made their way through smoke-filled corridors, shielding the infant as alarms flickered. Eli guided her with calm urgency, disabling traps, rerouting power, and disarming at least 2 saboteurs with precision strikes and stuns. Stay close, he said, drawing her behind him. They're trying to cut life support next. At the edge of the bridge corridor, they found Zarek and a handful of his followers confronting the last security personnel. Eli didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, unarmed now, visor up. You think love makes people weak? He shouted across the smoke. You're wrong. It makes them unstoppable. Zarek sneered. You know nothing of our pain, human. I don't, Eli said. But I know what happens when you let it rule you. You pass it on to your children, and they grow up never knowing peace. He looked down at the baby in Thessa's arms, then back at the rebels. That kid? He cried until someone held him. That's all it took. You're fighting the wrong enemy. The moment teetered. One of Zarek's followers, a younger male, lowered his blade. I saw my sister's child sleep for the first time last cycle, because of what he taught us. Others hesitated. Zarek roared, lunging forward, but Thessa stepped between him and Eli, holding her child high. Enough, she cried. If protecting my child means learning from another species, then I choose that over your war-born pride. Zarek hesitated, just long enough for Eli to knock him flat with a stun pulse to the chest. The rebellion ended not with death, but with a choice. Mercy, not vengeance. 3 weeks after the failed uprising, the Vraxos Mercy descended through the atmosphere of a lush, green world. From the viewing port, Thessa stood with her child, now affectionately called Buzz by nearly everyone on board, wrapped to her chest. His breathing was steady. His eyes, once clouded with distress, Now followed movement and light with growing curiosity. Beside her stood Sergeant Eli Voss, arms folded, face unreadable as the vast plains of Haven. 3 came into view. This was no Earth, no hive world, but it was a beginning, one promised to the refugees by the Human Colonial Alliance as a joint resettlement project. A neutral world, clean, open, fresh air, new soil. For many, it felt like a second chance. As the ship settled onto the tarmac, cheers rose from every deck. Children ran through corridors, some laughing, some still cautious. Families clung together, uncertain of what came next, but no longer trapped in darkness. Thessa looked up at Eli. "You should speak to them." He raised an eyebrow. "Me? You changed everything," she said. "They should hear it from you." He shook his head with a dry chuckle. "I'm not a hero. I just held a baby." "No," she said, eyes soft. "You heard a cry no one else would answer." Later that day, a gathering formed in the shade of a temporary shelter. Zelari and human settlers mingled for the first time as equals. Former enemies shared water and words. Elders from both species sat in a circle, while children played nearby, some crawling, some clumsily mimicking human gestures like waves or claps. Thessa stood before them, Buzz swaying gently in her sling. Her voice, usually quiet, carried with calm confidence now. "Once we believed physical closeness bred weakness," she began. "That survival meant distance, discipline, isolation. But we were wrong. Pain taught us that lesson. Fear taught it louder. But in that noise, one voice chose to comfort, not command." She turned to Eli. "This human taught us how to hold life without fear, how to calm our young, not by dominance, but by presence. He reminded us that survival is not enough. We must also live." A ripple of nods followed. A few clapped. One elder let out a harmonic chime in Zelari resonance, an old sign of respect once reserved for spiritual leaders. Eli shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not. Look, I didn't do this alone." "You didn't have to," Thessa replied. "You showed us the first step." In the days that followed, the settlement blossomed. Humans helped erect structures with alloy frames and solar mesh, while Zelari used their organic tools to bind living materials to shape breathable communal spaces. Together, they constructed hybrid habitats, half Earth, half hive. A new parenting center opened within a week, designed by both species. Inside, human techniques were mixed with Zelari resonance chambers. Caregivers from both species watched over younglings who no longer cried alone. Eli visited often, but never stayed long. He helped where he could, repairing drones, organizing defenses, teaching self-defense to nervous parents, but kept his distance emotionally, until Thessa stopped him at the edge of the settlement. "You still plan to leave?" she asked, Buzz cradled in her arms. Eli nodded. "I've got another post waiting. A new colony facing radiation storms. They need boots on the ground." Buzz reached for him, tiny hands clicking softly. Thessa smiled. "He knows your heartbeat better than mine." Eli hesitated. "I'm not a father." "No," she said. "You're a soldier. But maybe it's time you learned to be both." He looked at Buzz, then back at the settlement. This strange, living proof that war didn't have to end in ruins. That kindness could change the course of species. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. Thessa stepped closer, pressed Buzz gently into his arms. "You held him when no one else would," she said softly. "That was the beginning. Stay and see what comes next." That night, beneath 2 moons and a sky full of stars, Eli sat by a low fire. Buzz slept quietly against his chest. Thessa sat beside him, her head resting against his shoulder. Around them, children laughed, parents sang, and cultures intertwined, no longer afraid. Because sometimes, saving a world doesn't begin with a weapon. It begins with a lullaby.